Hello, my name is Dr. John McGeorge. I'm bringing you a new course entitled Overcoming the Darkness, a Christian Response to Cults, False Religions, and the Occult. And these are three particular areas that have grown exponentially here in our country in the last several decades, especially as the church begins to fade and many people search for alternatives, either religious alternatives, power alternatives, or some alternative to deal with the stress and the troubles of life. This course is broken down into 7 sections. In the initial section, I introduced cults, false religions, and the occult, and share about the 4 initial lies that Satan introduced in the garden, which are still being promoted today through all of these false religions, the occult, and so forth. And beginning with the first lie, that you can be like God, or you can be God. And that's just one of 4 initial lies. Then I talk about the biblical warnings in the New Testament. Jesus gave a great many warnings, the Apostle Paul, the Apostle Peter, the Apostle John, and Jude. And I've listed all of those warnings in the text so that you can read them and learn them. Also, I give you very strict definitions about what is a cult as opposed to the Christian churches. What is the occult? What are false religions? What is a sect? Because it's important to be able to identify what a group is in order to distinguish it from Christianity, and that you can know for certain that it's not teaching Orthodox Christianity. Then I deal with why cults continue to grow. And in the United States, they are growing rapidly, especially when we have Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons that generally constantly visit us in our homes and workplaces. Then I talk about the personality traits of cults, not just about the cult members, but the cult leadership as well. And it's very important to understand those traits, because oftentimes you'll understand that with a certain type of leader, they are leading a cultic group. Then I talk about the major characteristics of cults, and they're very specific that identifies that this group is a cult and this group is not a cult. There are many home churches and many small groups that are starting, and so it's important to realize, is it a cult or is it really people of the Christian faith just in a smaller group? And then in the end of the first section, I deal with the major doctrinal errors. And there are 24, and these constantly repeat themselves in the various cults and false religions, as well as in the occult. Now, the second part is I deal with historical heresies from the early church up until the present time. And it's important to realize all heresies start with some biblical truth, and then they go astray, change it, add to it, take away from it, modify it, do something to it in order to make it less than what God revealed. And it's important to understand those heresies, again, are being repeated over and over today. The third part, I deal with 10 specific cults. First of all, the Jehovah's Witnesses. And they are well known for false prophecies. They are also well known for mistranslating John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was a God for them, little g. Whereas in the original Greek, there is no little g. There's a definite article, in the beginning was God, with the word God, and it doesn't have to be repeated when it says, and the word was God, which means it identifies back at the earlier part of the verse as God himself. So they mistranslate John 1:1 and many other mistranslations. Then I talk about the Mormons, Joseph Smith, who's known to have gotten these golden plates, which no one ever saw, and just he was known as a liar and just an incredibly immoral man. Then I talk about the hyperfaith movement, about God in healing, God in wealth. Then I talk about the Seventh-day Adventist that celebrates Saturday as their Sabbath. Then the Freemasons, which is a interesting faith because it deals with a broad name of God coming from Babylon, Judaism, and so forth. Then I deal with the Baha'i faith, the Hare Krishnas, Hinduism, and Buddhism, all Eastern religions. And they have similarities that really God either doesn't exist, or he's impersonal, or he's some force. And then I end up this section 3 on Islam, which is a major growing religion in our country at this time. Now, in part 4, this is where I deal more with the minor cults, the less important cults. And there are certainly many to choose from, but I decided to choose just a small group, and I broke it down into Eastern influence and Western influence. In the Eastern influence, I started with the Unification Church, which we know basically as the Moonies, and how the Moonies have been seen at airports giving out flowers. Not so much today, but they have been very well known throughout this country. Then I deal with Transcendental Meditation, or TM, which has certainly been a growing phenomena in this country. And many people think, well, yoga is just a form of relaxation, stress release, and so forth. But what most people don't understand is that TM, or Transcendental Meditation, is deeply rooted in Eastern religions, and that when you're given a mantra, it is actually a name of a demon. So there are many other things I'll teach you about that. And then Jainism, Confucianism, and then Shintoism. And Shintoism is very important because it is the religion of Japan, and it is a religion of warriors, and that's why the Japanese have been known as a warring people for centuries. Then in the Western influence, I deal with Christian Science, which has been well known in this country for many, many decades. And they really believe that most things are illusion. And so what I'd like to do sometime is stomp on somebody's foot who's a Christian Scientist and say, was that an illusion? The pain is an illusion? But I wouldn't do that. Then I talk about the unity religion, which borrows from all religions, all sacred writings. Then the Unitarian Universalism, which basically believes that everyone is going to be saved no matter what. And then I end up with Scientology. Tom Cruise is well known as a member of Scientology, and they use these machines to get these engrams out of you. They don't believe in sin. They don't believe in the atonement. There's just something in you that needs to be taken out electromagnetically. And I talk more about that. Now, in the 5th section, I deal with occultism, and this is a critical area because most Americans do not understand occultism permeates our media. Children's cartoons have witches and warlocks and magic and wands and fairies and all of these things, which actually is an extension of the occult. Then you have, of course, Harry Potter, well known for the occultic activity. But then there are witches, warlocks, the Church of Satan, and all of that. And so I talk at length about what is occultism, the dangers of occultism, the various forms of occultism. Then I get into the New Age, and that is, as many people have said, it's out on a branch. It's where you believe that you are becoming God yourself. Then I talk about reincarnation. That's where karma kicks in, and you constantly relive lives because anything evil you do in this life, you're going to be punished in the next life. So you're constantly being reborn. Then I'll talk about astrology, the horoscope, hypnosis, which is a terrible mind control of one person over others, which is very dangerous. And then they talk about Satanism and witchcraft, and that's very, very prevalent in this country today. In part 6, I talk about 2 traditional groups, the Catholic Church and the Eastern Orthodox Church. And there are many doctrines in both of these groups which are very biblical. But there are also many things in these groups, the worship of Mary, that she's a co-redeemer with Christ, or like the Orthodox Church, that the saints inhabit the icons and we worship them. And so it's important to realize that there are many eras in these 2 faiths. The 6th or 7th section, I deal with evangelizing cult members. It's important to understand who they are, how to approach them, and how to lead them to Christ. And then I end with a conclusion.